Throughout the 5 buck races, we have seen many people attempt the competition, but there is one man we have seen participate in the buck race every single day that it was a thing. Josh Hebert's legacy in the buck race started with the buck race's conception in April of 2019. The start of Josh's journey happened when Freddie and Hunter came to him with an idea for a new competition. Although nobody could have predicted it, Josh would become one of, if not the most important participant in the buck race. The start of the first ever buck race was a simpler time. When Josh first started the buck race, he was more or less clueless. He was outsmarted mainly by Freddie and Noah, who were crushing it at this point.
When Cameron came into the buck race, it was kind of a low point for me because going into it, we were definitely rivals.
I was not confident in winning that first game, obviously due to the late entry. Also, as a competitor, I saw Josh as an equal challenge as everyone else. Not that much of a challenge.
This late entry was very unexpected for Josh, but when it happened, the rivalry was instant. Although Cameron did end up getting last place in the buck race, that wouldn't be the end of their rivalry. Josh still had hopes of beating Noah and Freddie, but he couldn't quite make it into the top 2. Freddie ultimately became the first champion of the buck race, with Noah as the runner-up.
I felt the same way beating Josh as I did everyone else. Like I could do it again. Or again. Foreshadowing? Yes. Hotel. Trivago.
The second buck race gave Josh a second chance, but it also reunited him with his biggest enemy from the last buck race, Cameron Partlow. Josh also had other competition in the form of newcomer James.
James was definitely the newcomer everybody was worried about. He really took the buck race to heart like how me or Cameron did. So for that reason, he was a bit threatening in the race as a whole.
After a heated controversy over email spamming regarding Cameron, the game was shaken, and with it, Josh had his chances shaken. Cameron's controversy helped Cameron land in first place for most of the race. The race soon got down to 3 people: Josh, James, and Cameron.
The answer regarding my spam, fueling my actions, is a definite yes. The fact that I was able to deter people from the buck race just made me more confident I was going to win. Can't lose when there's no one to lose against. Also, seeing Josh and James in the final 3 made me a bit worried, but I was still pretty confident I was going to win.
Cameron ultimately took the victory, leaving Josh defeated for a second time, even though this time, he was that much closer.
3 was one of the best that there's ever been. There was a constant power struggle between me and Cameron that really defined what the buck race had become at that time. It was never boring because of that equal power struggle between me and Cameron that always shifted. You never really knew which way it was going to go until the very end of it.
The third buck race brought back Josh and Cameron yet again, making them the only participants to be in every single buck race thus far, and making Josh the only original to be in every buck race.
The first couple buck races had strong approaches. However, the demographics shifted significantly after the third race. Once we lost Jedwards, the entire buck race operation began to crumble. Many left because of the email spamming, while others became established within the campus, too much to take the risk of not fitting in outside of the cult. Josh was someone I and many historians could recognize as being without anything better to do. A true dysfunction in the real world, but a great asset to the Hunter Bucks Corporation.
The third buck race brought in only 2 newcomers in the form of Xander and Logan.
I think I did pretty good. I definitely made some major errors during the race, but overall I think I did pretty well.
Although Xander and Logan sucked, the power duo never changed. Josh and Cameron had their previous buck race conflict, but this was the peak of their rivalry. Josh and Cameron ended up in the top 2 after a long battle, and by a matter of seconds, the win went to Cameron. Josh had never been so close to winning, and this loss only fueled the fire. This was it. Josh had lost 3 times in a row, and this was his time to finally pull out the win. Spending most of the race in first place, Josh not only set the record for the longest amount of time spent in first place, but also set the record for most Hunter Bucks accumulated in a single season. 2 records, to this day, that have still never been broken. The fourth buck race consisted of only 4 participants due to COVID restrictions, and only 1 newcomer. The cast was Josh, Cameron, Logan, and newcomer Allison, who put up a really good fight in the race.
I thought I didn't really have a chance at first. I was really competitive, and then I just kind of did it more for fun, so I didn't take it as seriously, but I also did. but I just knew I wouldn't win. I wouldn't get it this year.
Josh was in a great spot in the race with Cameron as his only real competition. When Cameron could not attend the finale of the buck race, it became a steamroll.
I'm really proud of my win, and I think it's without a doubt the best performance in any buck race ever. As for the race itself, it was one of the weaker ones. I think you need that power struggle for an interesting race, and it wasn't really that fun or entertaining to watch the race unfold if there's one person constantly dominating, that being me.
Josh's win in the buck race 4 was a well-earned victory. Josh was the most motivated individual in the 4th race, and honestly in all the races. Being motivated was very important in 2020, and this event was no exception. Josh attended all the Zoom calls and never missed an update. Cameron can be noted as a sore loser as he never showed up to the Zoom calls, yet somehow expected a victory.
But everyone knows, after the peak comes the fall. Coming hot off his win in the 4th buck race, Josh competed in the All-Star Buck Race, otherwise known as Buck Race 5. This race brought back everyone from the 4th buck race, as well as bringing back Xander from Buck Race 3. But that lasted about as long as Josh's self-confidence when he's reporting the weather.
Do you think Josh came off as cocky at the start of Buck Race 5? No, he definitely knew he was probably going to lose, and he was supportive for the underdogs.
Josh quickly got a personality check when he started out with negative 200 bucks, but after fighting his way back up, he found himself in a 3-way rivalry between Cameron and Logan. Meanwhile, this rivalry allowed Allison to take the top spot on a few occasions.
And with that rivalry that happened during that 5th race, it helped so much. Like watching the group chat and seeing everything go on with the disses between one another really helped formulate the why I should get first place. So, yeah, it helped.
The race was a long struggle with no clear frontrunner, but in an unexpected twist, all 4 participants competed in a final buck race challenge.
My thought process behind the final challenge of Buck Race 5 was to further illustrate the theme of unpredictability while still incorporating the previous incentives. The more points you earn throughout September, the more time your video would allow for. I also wanted to end in a different way that was ever done before, a more exciting finale than just an email, as this was the last race in history. The goal for this race was to truly make it anyone's game in hopes of new and unpredictable person winning. However, it did not end as anticipated.
I feel the final challenge was a great conclusion to the buck race. It had you on the edge of your non-existent seat. It turned a game of chance into a game of skill and determination. You had to push through the challenges you faced. You had to ignore your doubts. And you had to try your best. I may have doubted the idea at first, but it was a great challenge. And about my doubts on winning, it took some thought on what I was going to create and how I was going to deal with the unbelievably short time that our videos had to be. I knew I had the chance of losing. The reasons being, I had no idea what I was going to be judged on, or if the judges were going to be biased, considering the place that Elon put me in that Mario Kart race. Elon, why? Why me? But thankfully, my efforts paid off.
Josh lost this challenge to his greatest rival, Cameron.
You know, as a fan of competition, it kind of sucks to see only 3 winners across 5 races. But that's the way things turned out, I guess. As far as how I would summarize my journey, I would say it was a poor start, slowly made it to the top. I got there, it was a good feeling, and then it was kind of downhill from there. You can say what you want, but I'll always be the first to come to mind when you think of Buck Race legend. I definitely enjoyed the crazy ride that we call the Buck Race.
See, all these other people have so many flaws. Not me, though. I'm great at everything. Alright, I mean, let's just run down why these people suck. I mean, Cameron, who's making a music video. Allison, I don't even know what she's doing. And then you have these other 2 losers that don't even exist.